What's up, guys? Mike O'Connor here, just checking in with another film breakdown. Wanted to do a video real quick on some of the things that the Sixers can learn from the Knicks from their first round series against the Hawks, particularly in how they tried to match up with Trae Young on both ends of the floor. So just want to highlight some things that I think the Sixers should take from that matchup, some things that they could apply given their own personnel. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. And remember, as always, this video is sponsored by Body Bio. All right, lesson one, and probably the clearest lesson that you can learn from the Knicks in this series: do not use deep drop coverages. So if you look at how this series kind of evolved, starting in the early games, moving on to the later games. Early on, the Knicks were using a lot of these deep drop coverages. As you see, this clip is from Game 1. And Trae was just able to carve it up in any way he wants. Like, the Sixers learned this lesson last year in the playoffs, actually, against the Celtics, when they gave these types of deep coverages to Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum. And guys like that, guys like Trae, when they get that much of a head of steam and they have that much space to work with, they're just going to walk into open shot after open shot, and they establish such a rhythm that it just becomes impossible to defend them. Again, as this series went on, the Knicks corrected it and they fared slightly better. Obviously, Trae played amazing throughout the entire series, but it was just abundantly obvious, especially early on, that if you allow Trae that kind of space, he's just got so many tools he can go to score. If you are going to go to a drop coverage, and we'll talk about other types of coverages in a minute, you have to be higher up on these screens. Like, for example, on this play, this is from Game 5. So again, later on in the series, Julius Randle is much higher up on these screens than you saw, in the previous clips. And it might seem subtle, and it is subtle, but what it's going to do is it's going to prevent Trae from being able to get ahead of steam, go downhill, get to his floater, that type of thing. In this play, they actually force the pass and end up getting a turnover. Again, the lesson to be learned, and the Knicks learned it for them, thankfully. You can see it on film early in the series that when the Knicks go to a deep drop coverage, they get torched. And when they meet Trae, more closer to the point of the screen, they're able to disrupt him, force some turnovers, at the very least prevent him from getting, a huge head of steam and getting downhill. So that is lesson number one. Definitely the clearest lesson you can learn from them. If you are going to play drop coverages, don't play it too deep. Don't let them get that head of steam. Lesson two, if you are going to blitz properly. So again, as I mentioned a second ago, the Knicks, as the series went on, turned to some slightly more aggressive coverages that included, being higher up on the screen, some hedges, some blitzes, and they did have some success. The number one thing that the blitz is guaranteed to do is get the ball out of Trae's hands. Even if you have a defensive lapse and the ball ends up finding an open shooter, you did get the ball out of Trae's hands. So that's kind of the calculus that you have to look at here. So again, this is from Game 5. Nerlens Noel does a great job of putting the pressure on Trae, ends up getting a turnover here. You can kind of see the rewards of these types of things. Even on plays like this, you're going to see the ball's going to find DeAndre Hunter here, and you're just a hell of a lot more comfortable with the ball finding DeAndre Hunter than you are with Trae Young being able to attack with a full head of steam moving downhill, right? So even on plays where the Knicks did not defend it properly, it still might be preferable to letting Trae walk downhill into open shots. But I also want to make a really important point, and that's that I really think that the Sixers can do a better job of blitzing than the Knicks did. The Knicks didn't do a ton of it. They were hit or miss when they did it. But I think the Sixers have great personnel to do this. And there's a couple reasons behind that. Number one, the Sixers have a little bit more size on their front line. And number two is that the Sixers have great off-the-ball defenders who are really rangy and who can recover and just, cover a ton of ground. I mean, this play is a good example of, both a lapse and just an inability to kind of cover ground here. Obi Toppin and Reggie Bullock get a nice trap here. You wouldn't want Trae to turn the corner that easily, but it's not bad. The problem on this play is RJ Barrett needs to take away this pass to Kevin Huerter. What you want to do is take away, one pass away, force the long pass to Gallinari so that you can recover in the air and the defense can rotate. But that's not what RJ does. He allows the pass to Herter, and it's an open three. So that is, again, the trade-off that you make when you turn to these blitz coverages. You risk, a defensive lapse. It has to be a team effort, and if one person is out of position, it's kind of ruined. But I want to show an example of pretty much, the exact same type of play from the Sixers and Hawks regular season game. Dwight and George Hill, I don't know if I'd call this a blitz, but it's at least like a nice hedge. And Thibault is, remember I mentioned that RJ Barrett was in the corner as opposed to covering one pass away. Thibault does a nice job here cutting off the pass to John Collins, and because Thibault can cover such ground, he's able to recover and actually get a steal because he forces that pass to the long corner. Again, the blitz is high risk, high reward, but I really believe in the Sixers having the personnel, having the cohesion to make it an effective coverage. No matter what, I think it's something they'll turn to, even if it's not their silver bullet, because you can force the ball out of Trae's hands and you'll force some turnovers as well. But yeah, the lesson to be learned is if you're going to blitz, do it properly, because a lot of plays like this one, for example, if you allow these pocket passes to get to John Collins, that's a nightmare. I mean, this play is another example of it. I mean, how many times have we seen this sequence like Steph and Draymond, right? We've seen it 1,000 times over the past year. What you'd want to see on this play is Julius Randle, more aggressive, showing a little bit higher on the screen. This is kind of a half-assed blitz here. Julius needs to be higher up. His hands need to be up. You cannot allow this pass over the top from a guy like Trae, because if it is, like you saw, that's death and taxes, right? So again, another reason why I think the Sixers could fare a little better, because they have more size to defend these blitzes. Trae's able to get these passes over Julius Randle and Reggie Bullock. Can he get it over Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid? I'm not as confident. So yeah, I mean, the blitz is definitely something to look out for. I think the Sixers will have some success with it, but the lesson to be learned from this Knicks series is that if your coverage is not, really tight, both on the ball screen and on the back end, you're going to surrender a lot of open looks. So that's lesson 2. If you're going to blitz, do it properly. All right, lesson 3. If you put size on Trae, expect him to turn to isolations. So this one actually comes from, a great article that Seth Partnow wrote in The Athletic, where he found that as the Knicks put bigger defenders on Trae as the series went on, like for example Reggie Bullock, Trae's number of pick and rolls decreased, right? So after, I think it was an average of 52 ball screens in games 1 and 2, they went all the way down to 36 ball screens in game 3. And part of that might have been because the Knicks were playing more aggressive coverages, but it definitely had something to do with the fact that as Trae just found, more size on him, he preferred to just not use a ball screen and try to just go by these types of guys. So these are just a couple examples of Trae getting into those isolations. Trae is so quick, in terms of stop and start stuff. I think that he views having size and length on him as the opportunity to get into that kind of stuff. If the Sixers do have, Ben Simmons, or I guess you could say Danny Green or Matisse Thybulle, they're all much bigger than him. I would look for Trae to be aggressive in isolations. He clearly trended that way as the series advanced against the Knicks. And by the way, as this clip shows, the same thing applies if you do decide to switch your ball screens. Trae has no problem taking big men off the dribble in isolations. If you switch, a Dwight Howard or even a Tobias Harris onto him, I would definitely expect Trae to go heavy on the ISOs. So if you, again, the lesson to be learned here from the Knicks, just based on the numbers, as we saw from Seth, the decrease in the amount of ball screens as the Knicks started throwing bigger defenders on him, you can learn that the more size you put on him, the more isolations he's going to turn to. So just the Sixers have to be ready for that. They should expect that. And it's a good thing that they can take away from the Knicks series.
For any athlete, Body Bio Elite will improve your performance by preventing cramping and fatigue. Water alone doesn't replenish what your body needs, and most sports drinks contain unnecessary amounts of sugar and artificial flavors. Body Bio Elite has 3 all-natural ingredients: sodium, potassium, and magnesium, the electrolytes your body needs. Whether you're a runner, doing mixed martial arts, or just lifting in the gym, a splash of Elite in your water throughout the day will ensure that you deliver your peak performance. Body Bio Elite, no-nonsense electrolytes.
Lesson number 4. You have to find ways to attack Trae Young on defense. This was just one of the Knicks' biggest failures in the entire series. They just could not find a way to exploit Trae's weaknesses. Frankly, they didn't even try that many things. Trae was just able to kind of get by, hiding on Reggie Bullock. And, one of the few things they did was, like on this play you're about to see here, they would run Bullock off of these pin downs and try and get him open. But Bullock just doesn't have the, off the dribble playmaking ability to do anything once he turns the corner here. Also absent a true perimeter star, the Knicks just weren't able to try and get Trae switched on anybody and exploit him that way. So, one of the things I would do if I were the Sixers is I would run this play they used to run with JJ and Ben pick and roll. If Trae is guarding Danny Green or Seth Curry, just run this play all day and force Trae to fight through it. If he switches onto Ben, Ben can just drive right by him on his way to the rim or draw a foul. And if he tries to fight through the screen, I would bet that Danny or Seth would be open. So I would try and run this type of play a lot. I would try and run the play they used to run called elbow high. They actually still run it under Doc. It was originally under Brett. This is it right here where it's the same thing, except there's also going to be a dribble handoff involved right there. Yeah, there's a few different things you can do. I just think they'll have to get creative in their playbook. They'll have to try and get Trae switched onto Tobias or Ben. And if Trae does end up guarding guys like Danny or Seth or whoever, they have to keep moving, keep him active off the ball, wear him down. I just thought the Knicks did a really bad job of being creative and finding ways to make Trae work for everything on the defensive end. So those are the 4 keys, guys. Don't run the deep drop coverages. If you're going to blitz properly. If you throw size on Trae, he's going to isolate, and make him work on the defensive end because the Knicks couldn't figure out how. There you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this is Mike O'Connor, and as always, this video is sponsored by Body Bio.